The book of Haggai is a powerful, short book that encourages the people of Judah to rebuild the temple after returning from Babylonian exile. Haggai's message is direct, challenging the people to put God's house first in their priorities. Through Haggai, we learn important lessons about obedience, priorities, and God's presence in our lives. Let's explore the teachings of Haggai and their significance today. Haggai was a prophet during the time when the Jews had returned from Babylonian exile. The people had started rebuilding their own homes, but neglected the reconstruction of the temple. In chapter 1, Haggai's message is clear: is it a time for you yourselves to be living in your paneled houses, while this house remains a ruin? Haggai 1:4. This teaches us the importance of prioritizing God's work. Haggai tells the people that because they neglected rebuilding the temple, their efforts were fruitless. They sowed much, but harvested little, and their labor did not bring satisfaction. Haggai 1:6. This teaches us that when we neglect God's work and focus only on ourselves, we miss out on true blessings. Haggai reminds us that putting God first brings fulfillment, whereas neglecting His will leads to frustration. Haggai doesn't just deliver a message of rebuke, he also calls the people to immediate action. In Haggai 1:8, God commands, "Go up into the mountains and bring down timber and build my house." This teaches us that God not only wants our hearts, but also our actions. True faith is demonstrated through obedience, and Haggai urges us to take tangible steps in fulfilling God's will. As the people obeyed and began rebuilding, God's promise was clear: "I am with you, declares the Lord." Haggai 1:13. This teaches us that when we commit to God's work, He does not leave us alone. His presence goes with us, empowering us and guiding us. The assurance of God's presence motivates us to persevere in the work He calls us to do. In chapter 2, Haggai encourages the people, reminding them that the glory of the new temple will surpass the former one. Haggai 2:9. Although the current temple seemed less grand than Solomon's, God promised greater glory. This teaches us that God's plans are often bigger than what we can see. He reminds us to keep moving forward, trusting that the outcome will be greater than we can imagine. Haggai 2:19 declares that from the day the foundation of the temple was laid, God would bless the people. This teaches us that obedience to God brings His blessings. As soon as the people realigned their priorities and put God's work first, they opened the door to God's favor. This reminds us that obedience unlocks the blessings of God, and He honors those who put Him first in their lives. In the final verses of Haggai, Zerubbabel, the governor of Judah, is given a promise of hope. God says that He will make Zerubbabel like my signet ring. Haggai 2:23. This signifies God's promise to establish the Davidic line, and ultimately, points to the coming Messiah. This teaches us that God's plans are long-term and full of hope, as Zerubbabel's role foreshadows the coming of Christ. The book of Haggai teaches several key lessons. First, it emphasizes the importance of putting God's work first. Second, it shows us that God blesses obedience. Third, Haggai reminds us that God's presence is with us when we obey. Lastly, it teaches that God's plans are always greater than our own. Haggai calls us to act in faith, trusting that God will fulfill His promises. Haggai's message is relevant today, urging us to put God first in our lives. In a world that often prioritizes material success, Haggai challenges us to focus on spiritual priorities. His call to action reminds us that God's work should take precedence in our lives, and that true blessings follow obedience. Haggai's message speaks to those seeking purpose and fulfillment, encouraging us to align our lives with God's will. The book of Haggai offers a profound message of prioritizing God, obedience, and faith in His promises. Through the story of rebuilding the temple, we learn the importance of putting God's work first, trusting in His guidance, and experiencing His presence in our efforts. Haggai's teachings encourage us to move forward in faith, knowing that God's blessings follow our commitment to His plan. Thank you for exploring the book of Haggai with us. We hope this journey has deepened your understanding of the importance of prioritizing God and His work in your life. May Haggai's message inspire you to act in faith and trust in God's plan, knowing that His presence will be with you every step of the way.